4 college students from a Utah university vanished during a volunteer trip there. Mysterious disappearance baffled even seasoned investigators. But 4 months later, a clerk at a harbor discovers something shocking inside a shipping container, a disturbing find that changes the entire case. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead in Marion Hartley's diner, casting uneven shadows across the worn laminate table up. It was 5:30 a.m. in Cedar City, Utah, and the small-town diner wouldn't open for an hour and a half in the dining area for women huddled around a table covered with coffee-stained map shipping route printouts and grainy drone footage images. Marion Hartley ran hurt-rimbling fingers through her ash-blonde hair, the same shade her daughter Olivia had inherited. Dark circles rimmed her eyes, evidence of another sleepless night spent searching for Anne's worse across from her SAT. Elena Cruz, whose normally immaculate appearance had given way to a messy ponytail and wrinkled blouse. Next to Elena was Natalie Dawson, whose fingers constantly fidgeted with her wedding ring as she stared at the photos scattered before them. Completing their circle was Danica White, who maintained her composure better than the others but whose eyes betrayed the same desperate were their daughters Olivia Hartley. Jasmine Cruz, Claire Dawson, and Sophia White had been best friends since high school. The girls had chosen to attend Southern Utah University together, sharing classes and dreams. Now they shared something else. They were all missing Mrs. Hartley, said FBI agent Philip Carter, his voice gentle but professional. I understand your frustration, but I want to assure you we're pursuing every possible lead. His partner, Agent Rebecca in agreement, her expression sympathetic but guarded. The problem is that we've found no evidence in Utah, nothing at the border checkpoints and nothing in the surrounding states. Even in Texas, where they were last seen, the trail goes cold. It's been for months, Marion said, her voice cracking, for months since they decided to take that detour to Texas. The weight of those 4 months hung in the air. What was supposed to be a simple university trip had turned into a nightmare. The entire class had been scheduled for an environmental volunteer effort at the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area, but Olivia had received information from her Marine research contact at a volunteer organization a secluded beach in Texas where sea turtles laid eggs. The 4 girls had decided to visit Texas first, before joining their classmates in Oregon. They never made it to Oregon. We've interviewed everyone sided with the volunteer organization that arranged the Oregon trip. Agent Thompson explained. We've searched the Texas coast, where they were reportedly headed. We've checked hotel records, rental car agencies, gas stations, and traffic cameras. What about their phones? Danica asked, her voice steady despite her anguish. There must be something. Their phones went offline within an hour of each other on May 2. Agent Carter replied. The last ping came from near Corpus Christi, but the signal despaired after that. From the kitchen, the sounds of the staff preparing for the day's business carried through the swinging doors. Meanwhile, on the walls of the dining area, dozens of flyers bearing the girls' photos surrounded them like silent witnesses to their ongoing ordeal. Suddenly, Agent Carter's phone rang. He stepped away from the table, his expression shifting from professional detachment to Fuku's distrust. The 4 mothers exchanged glances, a flicker of hope kindling in their exhausted eyes. They'd seen enough law enforcement responses over the past 4 months to recognize when something significant had occurred. When Agent Carter returned to the table, his posture had changed. Ladies, we may have something. He paused, choosing his words carefully. The Texas Coast Guard has found evidence that might be related to your daughter's case. They discovered personal belongings in a shipping container on a freighter docked at the port of Brownsville. What kind of belongings? Elena asked, leaning forward with sudden intensity. A pink suitcase, backpacks, and some other personal items that matched the descriptions in our missing persons report. Agent Carter replied. They're securing the scene now. We need to go there, Marion said immediately. Already standing up. We need to see if those are our daughters' things. Agent Thompson nodded. We can arrange transport. A flight to Brownsville would take about 3.5 hours. I'll close the diner for today, Marion said, determination replacing the fatigue in her eyes. Within an hour, preparations had been made. The 4 mothers packed small overnight bags, not knowing how long they would be gone, but understanding the urgency of the situation. Agent Carter coordinated with the local Cedar City Police and the FEPI field office in Texas. By 7:30 a.m., they were boarding a small plane at Cedar City Regional Airport with Agents Carter and Thompson. Accompanying them, flight was tense and largely silent, each woman lost in her own thoughts, caught between hope that this might be the break they'd been waiting for and fear of what they might discover when they landed in Brownsville shortly after 11 a.m. local time. Police vehicles were waiting to escort them directly to the port. The convoy moved quickly through the city streets arriving at a bustling scene of activity. Coast Guard officers, Port Authority, personal local police, and shipping clerks swarmed around an area where a large red shipping container had been moved away from a freighter and set on the ground. Officer Curtis Prow of the Brownsville Police Department met Themas. They stepped out of their vehicles. Agent Carter, Agent Thompson. He greeted them with a professional nod before turning to the mother's ladies. I'm sorry, we're meeting under these circumstances. He introduced them to Reuben Kim, a shipping clerk at the port off Brownsville, who nervously adjusted his glasses as he explained the discovery. It was just routine inspection, Reuben said. We do random checks for contraband, and one of our K9 units alerted in on this container when I checked the manifest. I noticed this container wasn't scheduled for shipment. It was supposed to be here. What did you find inside? Agent Carter asked. Reuben gestured toward the open doors of the container. Personal items, arranged like someone had been living there. Mattresses, suitcases, backpacks. The mothers moved closer, their hearts pounding as they approached the container. Just inside the doors, police had carefully arranged the items they'd found. A pink suitcase, 3 matching pink backpacks, a straw hat, and a brown leather handbag. Deeper in the container, they could see mattresses laid out on the floor, along with empty water bottles, sand, canned food containers. Miss Hartley, Officer Prow said gently, can you identify any of these items? Marion stepped forward first, her hand trembling as she reached for the pink suitcase. This is Olivia's, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I bought it for her high school graduation. These scratch marks on the corner, she got them when we visited my sister in Denver last year. Elena pointed to the straw hat and one of the pink backpacks. This is just mine's hat. She bought it specially for this trip and this backpack. See this charm? She touched a small silver dolphin attached to the zipper. I gave it to her for her birthday. One by one, each mother identified items belonging to their daughters. The matching pink backpacks had been a group purchase the girls had made together, but each had personalized dumb with unique charms or pins. The mattresses, Natalie said, looking deeper into the container. How long have they been here? A forensic technician who had been working inside the container stepped forward. Based on the condition and wear patterns, I'd estimate they've been used for quite some time. Definitely longer than 4 months. They may have been here before your daughter's agent. Carter nodded. Grimly, it appears someone was keeping them here and left in a hurry. Probably when they learned about the routine inspection, they abandoned the personal belongings, likely planning to return the girls to the container after the check was complete. Have you checked the port's security footage? Agent Thompson asked. Officer Pro, yes, but we haven't seen any sign of the girls in the area. Officer Pro replied, we believe the person who took them was aware of the inspection schedule and the location of the CACT cameras. They likely moved the girls during the night. These containers were headed for Puerto Progreso in Mexico. Reuben added, we've already alerted the Mexican authorities. Marion stared into the dark interior of the container, trying to imagine her daughter confined in that space. How many other containers like this might there be? She asked, her voice hollow. That's what we need to find out. Agent Carter said. Officer Prow, we'll need to interview port workers and the freighter's crew. Someone had to have seen something. Officer Prow nodded. We've already started gathering statements. In the meantime, forensics needs to process all of this evidence. Let's move to Thay Harbor office, where you can complete the necessary paperwork. As the forensic team moved in to collect fingerprints and DNA samples, the 4 mothers took one last look at their daughters' belongings before officers toward the harbor building. Each step away from the container felt like abandoning their children all over again, but they knew finding the truth was their only path forward. The harbor office buzzed with activity as the 4 mothers were escorted into a conference room. The walls were lined with maritime maps and safety protocols, and a large window overlooked the bustling port. Officer Pro handed them clipboards with forms to fill out. Standard procedure, he explained. We need your formal statements and authorization for DNA collection to compare with samples from the container. Mothers sat side by side at the long table, pens scratching against paper. Astley documented what they knew about their daughter's last known movements. The process felt painful. After months of similar forms and statements, how long will the lab analysis take? Elena asked, her hand aching from writing. We've expedited everything. Agent Carter replied, the DNA comparisons could take a day or two, but should be faster. We've also got teams coordinating with Mexican Border Patrol and authorities at Puerto Progreso. After they completed the paperwork, they were asked to wait in an adjacent room until the lab technicians arrived to collect DNA samples. The waiting room had the same institutional feel as every other space they'd occupied during the search. Neutral walls, uncomfortable chairs, and the distinct sense of being in a place where bad news was commonplace. Marian stood by the window gazing out at the port. Operations container ships loomed in the distance while smaller vessels navigated the harbor. Cranes lifted massive containers, moving them like oversized building blocks. Somewhere among all that machinery and movement, her daughter might have been held captive for months. As her eyes tracked the activity, she noticed a man in a navy blue polo shirt talking to a port worker wearing sunglasses. Something about his posture and gesture made her pause. "Elena," she said quietly, not taking her eyes off the man. "Does that person look familiar?" Toyu. Elena joined her at the window, followed by Natalie and Danica. "I can't place him," Elena said, squinting. "But there's something." Natalie suddenly reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "Wait, I think I know who that is." Shay handed the card to Marion. "Brady Coburn. He's the CEO of Future Path Volunteers. Remember, they had a booth at that university event last semester." Marion examined the card. "Future Path Volunteer" emblazoned across the top with Brady Coburn, Chief Executive Officer, underneath the organization's tagline, "Changing lives through compassionate action." "That's right," Elena said, recognition dawning in her eyes. "They organized cultural exchange and humanitarian trips. That's the organization that set up the Oregon trip for the girls' class. And Olivia's marine research contact," Marion added, her voice growing tight. "That was through Future Path. They were the ones who told her about the sea turtle nesting beach in Texas." The four women exchanged significant glances. The police were aware of this. They already interviewed them, Danica suggested, but now that Mr. Coburn is here, they might want to speak with him too. Marion looked back toward the conference room, where the agents were reviewing their statements with Officer Prow. "They seem busy with the port authorities, let's just say. Heller Silves first. He might have some insight. I'll come with you." Natalia, Ford, Elena, and Danica. "Tell the agents where we've gone if they come looking for us." Marion and Natalie left the harbor office and made their way across the concrete expanse toward Brady. Coburn was still deep in conversation with the port worker, Mr. Colborne. Marion called. Asti approached. Brady turned, his expression momentarily freezing before shifting into a polite smile. "Yes, can I help you? I'm Marion Hartley, and this is Natalie Dawson. We met at Southern Utah University last semester during the volunteer fair." Brady hesitated, studying their faces before recognition seemed to dawn. "Oh, yes, Cedar City, the university event. I remember now." His companion, the port worker with sunglasses, nodded curtly before walking away, clipboard in hand. "What brings you to Brownsville?" Marion asked, trying to keep her tone casual despite the suspicion building within her. Brady gestured vaguely toward a stack of containers in the distance. "Organizing supplies for a disaster relief shipment. We're sending medical equipment and food to communities affected by the hurricane in Central America." "That's quite a coincidence," Natalie said carefully. "We didn't expect to see anyone from Utah here." "What about you ladies?" Brady asked, his tone friendly, though his eyes lacked the warmth of his smile. "How's the police investigation?" "In Utah, going. You're not here on vacation, I assume?" Marion shook her head. Actually, the authorities just found some of their belongings in a shipping container here at the port." Brady's face pad slightly here. "The missing university students. That's shocking. You know, back then, the Fifi questioned everyone at Future Path since we arranged the Oregon trip." He shook his head solemnly. "Terrible situation. I'm so sorry. The police are treating it as a criminal case now," Natalie added, watching his reaction carefully. "They found mattresses and personal belongings in the container. It looks like someone was keeping them there." Brady's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "That's terrific. I sincerely hope they find whoever's responsible." He glanced at his watch. "I should really get back to work. We have a tight schedule to meet for this hitman." "Of course," Marion said. "We won't keep you. I wish you all the best with the investigation," Brady said, already backing away. "I hope they find your daughters soon." Thea watched as he hurried across the port area, his posture stiff and movement hurried. "Did he seem nervous to you?" Marion asked as they walked back to the harbor office. "Definitely," Natalie confirmed. "He could barely look us in the and he couldn't get away fast enough." When they returned to the waiting room, Elena and Danica were deep in conversation. "What happened?" Ellen asked. "He was off," Marion replied, keeping her voice low. "He claimed to be organizing disaster relief supplies, but he seemed really uncomfortable talking to us, you know?" Elena said he thought he was strange at that university event too. He barely spoke to any of the parents, letting his staff do the talking while he just stood there watching everyone. "Maybe he's just socially awkward," Danica suggested. "Not everyone is good with people, especially in sensitive situations." Likethis, that's true, Natalie conceded. And FuturePath didn't ask for excessifies for the trip. Just reasonable travel costs. Their program seemed legitimate still, Marion said, looking out the window again where she could see Brady talking urgently with the same port worker. Wearing sunglasses, it's odd for a CEO to be personally handling. Shipping logistics isn't ithier. Conversation was interrupted when Agent Carter and a lab technician entered the waiting room. Ladies, we're ready to collect DNA samples. Agent Carter announced it's just a simple cheek swab. One by one, they provided samples. The technician carefully labeling each swab before placing it in a sealed container. Agent Carter, Marion said after completing her sample, the CEO of Path Volunteers is here at the port. Brady Coburn. We just spoke with him. Agent Carter raised an eyebrow. Color here in Brownsville. He said he's organizing disaster relief supplies, Natalie explained, but he seemed very uncomfortable when we mentioned the container. Agent Carter made a note in his notebook. We've investigated FuturePath thoroughly. Everything checked out: proper registrations, transparent finances, legitimate operations. Color has cooperated fully with our investigation. Maybe you should talk to him anyway, Marion suggested. It's a strange coincidence. I'll look into it, Agent Carter promised. He stepped out briefly to speak with a port official, returning a few minutes later. I've confirmed that Mr. Coburn has legitimate business. Here, his signature is on the harbor logs for several containers of humanitarian supply scheduled for shipment to Puerto Barrios in Guatemala. Nothing connected to the container where we found your daughter's belongings. The mothers exchanged glances, not entirely convinced, but lacking any concrete reason for their suspicion. What happens now? Alina asked, changing subject. We'll continue processing the evidence, Agent Carter replied. In the meantime, I suggest you find accommodations in town. This might take several days. We'd like to stay, Classa, Marion said firmly. For when you find something, Agent Carter nodded understandingly. If you're staying, at least let me help keep things safe. I'll arrange a rental car and find you suitable accommodations nearby. Officer Curtis, who had just entered the room, added, You're welcome to stay as long as needed. We'll work closely with you, and you can reach me anytime if you need assistance while in town. The mothers nodded gratefully, all for determined to remain in Brownsville until they found answers, or hopefully their daughters. Marion, Elena, Natalie, and Danica followed Agent Carter out of the harbor office into the bright Texas afternoon sun. Officer Curtis had arranged for a patrol car to take them to a hotel near the port where they checked into adjacent rooms. Get yourself settled, Agent Carter suggested. I need to make a few calls, and then we'll get you a rental car so you can move around more freely. An hour later, they met Agent Carter in the hotel lobby. The mothers had freshened up, but the strain of the day's discoveries was still evident in their faces. There's a rental agency about 10 minutes from here, Agent Carter said, leading them to a waiting patrol car. I'll put the rental under my name and FBI credentials. It should speed up that. The rental car facility was a small family-owned operation, set back from the main road in a commercial district. A weathered sign reading GF Coast Auto Rentals hung above the entrance. Inside, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair greeted them from behind a cluttered counter. Welcome to GF Coast Auto, he said warmly. I'm Mike Fletcher, the owner. How can I help you folks today? Agent Carter presented his. We need a mid-sized vehicle for an indefinite period, possibly several days. Mike nodded, typing into his computer. I've got a 2023 Toyota Camry available. Should be comfortable for you ladies. While Mike processed the paperwork, Agent Carter led the group outside to inspect the vehicle. The car was clean and well-maintained with less than 15,000 mon. The odometer, this will work fine, Agent Carter confirmed, signing the necessary forms. When they returned inside, I'll just need a card for the deposit, Mike said, completing the transaction as he handed over the keys. He added, try to keep it clean and full of gas. If you don't mind, we're a small operation and detailing costs eat into our margins. Well, take good care of it, Marion assured him. Mike sighed, leaning against the counter. I appreciate that. Had some folks a while back who didn't show the same consideration. Returned one of my cars in terrible shape. What happened? Agent Carter asked. Professional curiosity piqued. Group of young men rented one of my SUVs about 6 months ago. When they brought it back, it was a disaster. Dents and scratches on the exterior, interior filthy with sand and trash. Didn't even bother to refill the gas tank. Mike shook his head at Thea. Memory cost me nearly $2,000 to fix everything, but they paid the damages. What that complaint, which was the only silver lining. The mothers exchanged quick glances, a silent communication that had developed over months of shared anguish. 6 months ago, Marion asked casually. That would have been around May or June, end of May. Mike confirmed Memorial Day weekend. Actually remember, because I was short on vehicles during a busy holiday. Natalie stepped forward. Would you mind showing us some photos of the damage? We're curious about what kind of restoration work was needed. Mike looked bewildered by the request, but Agent Carter smoothly intervened. We're investigating a case that might involve similar vehicle misuse. Any information could be helpful. Instinct dawned on Mike's face. Oh, you're with the FBI? Sure, I documented eerie for the insurance claim. He pulled out his smartphone and scrolled through his photos. Here we go. He handed the phone to Agent Carter, who examined the images before passing it to the mothers. The photos showed Unsolved with scratched paint and dented panels. More disturbing were the interior shot seats covered in sand, empty food containers scattered throughout, and what appeared to be plastic wrappers partially hidden under the seats. Alina pointed to one of the images. Can you zoom in on that? Mike took the phone back and enlarged the photo. The mothers leaned in, recognizing the distinctive packaging of male contraceptives among theatabris. Do you remember who rented this car? Agent Carter asked, his tone still casual, but his attention now fully engaged. Mike turned to his computer. Lem check our records. After a moment, he nodded. Here it is. Guy named Danny Rosa rented it for 5 days, starting May 23rd, but didn't return it until May 30. Charged him a late fee on top of the damage deposit. The timing aligned perfectly with when the girls had gone missing. Agent Carter pulled out his notebook, jotting down the information. Did Moso say anything about what happened to the vehicle? Agent Carter asked. Mike shook his head. That's what was strange. Most people have some excuse or story, but this guy barely spoke, just handed over his credit card for the charges, signed the forms and left. Never saw him again. Do you have his information on file? Agent Carter asked. Contact details, address, that sort of thing. Sure. Do required for all rentals? Mike turned monitor toward them. Danny Rosso, age 28, with a Brownsville address. Got his driver's license number. Phone, everything. Agent Carter pulled out his cell phone. I need to call this in. He stepped outside while the mother scantuned to look at the rental information. You think there's a connection? Mike asked, watching their intense focus on his computer screen. We're not sure. Marian Ann sweared honestly, but our daughters went missing around the same time. This car was rented, however. They didn't specifically go to Brownsville. They were at South Padre Island. Mike's expression softened with, the 4 college girls from Utah. I saw that on the news. I'm so sorry. We found their belongings today, Natalie explained, in a shipping container at the Brownsville port. Mike's eyes widened. Jesus, you think this Danny Rosso had something to do with it? We don't know, Alina replied, but thetamine matches and the condition of the car is suspicious, and the late return where, considering everything. Agent Carter returned, his expression serious. I've notified the Brownsville PD. They're sending officers to check Thief Kickle. Even after 6 months, there might be trace evidence. We can recover the car has been cleaned and repainted, Mike warned, used multiple times since a thon. Modern forensic techniques can still detect biological material months or even years later, Agent Carter explained, especially if it's soaked into upholstery or settled in crevices. Mike nodded, printing out their rental agreement. Here's everything we have on Danny Rosso. Hope it helps. Agent Carter took the document, folding it carefully into his jacket pocket. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. You've been very helpful. As they prepared to leave, Mike called after them. If only I'd known back then. Thought something might be wrong. I would have reported it. You couldn't have known, Danica assured him, but you're helping now, and that's what matters. They left the rental office with mixed emotions, anxiety over what the new lead might reveal, but also a spark of hope that they were finally making progress. What now? Marian asked as they reached the rental car. It's getting late, Agent Carter replied, checking his watch. You should get some rest. I'll stay and coordinate with the forensic team when they arrive to examine the rental vehicle. We'll update you on any findings tomorrow, Natalie asked. Tomorrow we'll search the... Again, Agent Carter confirmed with these new leads. We have better focus areas. The beach isn't far from Thepert. The mothers reluctantly agreed, understanding the need for rest. After their emotionally draining day, they got into their rental car with Marian behind the wheel and headed back toward their hotel, each lost in thoughts of what tomorrow might bring. It was past length time, nearly 300 p.m. when Marian found herself staring at the ceiling of her hotel room, unable to rest despite her exhaustion. Next door she could hear the murmur of Elena and Danica's voice. Natalie sat in the armchair by the window, absently scrolling through her phone. I can't just sit here, Marion announced, suddenly sitting up. We still have plenty of daylight left, Natalie looked up from her phone. What are you thinking? The girls came to Texas because of a beach where sea turtles nest right. Olivia's marine research contact at Future Path told them about it. Marianne reached for her shoes. What if we check out some of the nearby beaches? Just to see the area, get a feel for where they might have been. We should wait for Agent Carter. Natalia hesitated. He said, we'd search the coastline tomorrow. Tomorrow could be too. Marianne insisted if there's any connection between Brady Coburn, that Danny Russo character, and what happened to our girls. I want to see it for myself. Natalie considered this for a moment before nodding slowly. That's unlikely, but okay, let's talk to Elena and Danica. They knocked on the adjoining door, finding the other two mothers poring over a local map they'd obtained from the hotel lobby. We were just discussing dinner options, Elena said, looking up. There's a seafood place down the road that the receptionist recommended. Actually, Marian began. Natalia and I were thinking of checking out one of the local beaches, the one the girls might have visited for the Cedartail research. Danica frowned, but they didn't come to Brownsville. They were supposed to go to South Padre Island for the marine research, according to what Sophia told me before they left. True, but we're here now, and there might be something similar along this coastline. Marian persisted. I need to dose a mything active. I can't sit in this room waiting. Alina and Danica exchanged concerned glances. I understand, Alina said gently, but we're Alex Houston. Agent Carter specifically asked us to rest. You two can stay here, Natalia suggested. Seeing the fatigue in their eyes, Marian and will just take a quick drive. Maybe walk along the shoreline for a bit. We'll be back for dinner after some discussion. They reached a compromise. Alina and Danica would stay behind to rest and shop for necessities at the nearby convenience store, while Marian and Natalie would explore the local beach. Briefly the